There was a young boy who became a major poet in Greece and from Zakynthos in the Ionian Islands named Hugo Phoskolos. In 1786, this 10-year-old boy noticed that the Jews were confined to a ghetto, and that disturbed him. On his own, he approached the Venetian governor and requested that he free the Jews from being confined to the ghetto. The governor responded favorably, and the Jews were no longer confined to a ghetto or needed to be locked in at night. Eventually, they moved out of that compound. The Venetian period. Zakynthos is a city on the island of Zante, also called Zakynthos, the main southwesternmost island of the Ionian Islands of Greece. Moses Basola, who passed through Zante in 1522, founded about 30 families in a synagogue. Eliyahu of Pizarro mentions in 1563 20 heads of families of Sicilian and Portuguese origin, mostly wealthy merchants engaged in maritime trade between Venice and Constantinople. The Jews lived in a ghetto which was closed at night. From 1518, they had to wear the Jewish badge. The first known rabbi of the community was Joseph Foreman, and then he would later be an artist, I think. Born in Saris, in Macedonia, who headed a rabbinical school before being appointed to Zante. During the 17th century, Rabbi Jacob ben Israel Halevi was the rabbi of Zante. There was a blood libel in Zante in 1712. There were two synagogues in the town, one named the Zante Synagogue and the other Candia. That Candia is in Crete, that's Heraklion today, and that's because there probably was migration from Heraklion to there. They were like sister communities. The latter was built in 1699 by natives of Candia at a slight distance from the ghetto, destroyed in 1712 and rebuilt in 1716. The Jews engaged in crafts and commerce. As a result of the blood libels and the decline in commerce, they abandoned the town. After some time, Jews from Corfu, Crete, Constantinople, Izmir, and other places settled in Zante. The British period, 1815 to 1864. It was forbidden for them to belong to the artisan guilds and trade associations and to take part in the political life of the island. Jews were forced to do grueling road work and highly taxed. The Greek period was in 1864. We're going to make it short. We're not really going into the history. But in 1891, the Jewish population numbered between 230 and 300. In light of the 1891 Corfu blood libels, local residents in Zakynthos threatened to retaliate against the Jews of Zakynthos. Greek troops prevented angry mobs from attacking the Jews. 3 Greek soldiers died defending the Jews from the unruly mob. Although the troops defended the Jews, the mob attacked 4 Jewish families outside of the Jewish ghetto. In 1893, the Jews suffered an additional blood libel. The synagogue, it still stands today, and the graves can't be read very easily, but they're graves hundreds of years, but they can't be read. At the outbreak of World War II, the Jewish population numbered 270 people. With the German occupation, many of them sought refuge in the mountains. Some 70 to 80 remained in the town. 30 died of starvation, hiding in the villages throughout the island. The convoy of Jews, which was sent to Corfu, from Corfu to death camps in Poland in June 1944, was too large to permit a stop or a halt in Zante, so the Jews were just saved. Those who had fled subsequently returned in September of that year, but shortly afterwards, a large number of them migrated to Eretz Yisrael. They go in 1946. Now, talk about a little bit about why this one community wasn't deported. It was a rare phenomenon under Nazi occupation. The role of the Metropolitan Christostomos and the Mayor Lucas Carrere in protecting the Jews. Jewish Community President Gani was too weak to face German commander Alfred Luth. Metropolitan Chrysostomos and Mayor Lucas Carrere represented the Jewish community vis-a-vis the Nazi commanders to relieve the Jews from forced labor. Luth and Behrens, as assistant, requested the Jewish community lists, also for labor, but also to organize them for future deportation. The 2 dignitaries tried to buy for time. They urged the Jews to flee to the villages. When the German commander requested the list, the religious leader writes on a piece of paper 2 names, his name and Mayor Carrere, as the 2 local Jews. After the war, the two were later recognized by Yad Vashem as righteous Gentiles. There's much more to the story. I've written about it. Other people have written about it. There are other factors. There are other factions who pressured the Germans. But in the end, the Germans didn't deport the Jews. It still raises a lot of questions why the Nazis went to great extents all throughout Greece and Europe to kill Jews everywhere, to deport them, to arrest them, deport them, send them to death camps, and why these Jews were spared. 1946. Most of the surviving Jews went on illegal immigration to Eretz Israel on the Henrietta Szoll boat. The boat was caught in the Haifa Bay. Jews on board battled the British for 24 hours. They surrendered in the end and were sent to Cyprus until December 1946. In 1953, there was an earthquake, and then most of the Jews left for Athens or Israel. In the 1980s, the last Jew died, and the Greek Board of Jewish Communities in Athens oversaw the synagogues and the cemetery.